Good, welcome to tonight. This is the second, our second session, the Building Bridges 24. I'd invite Uncle Greg Sims to do the Welcome to Country. Thank you. And we'll be joined by also Kathy Donnelley, who's joining us tonight too. I'll hand you. Thank you.
Firstly, I would like to start saying, Mike, good evening to all. Good evening. What a me! What a me! Way to go, little buddy. Hello, friends. It's good to see you. My name's Greg Sims. Everyone knows me as Uncle Greg. I'd like to acknowledge that we're in Donnelley land. I'd like to acknowledge the Northern elders past and present. We don't own the land owns us. We come from Mother Earth. We are the land. And the land upon today, we're in between two tribal areas, which is the Toongal tribe from the Toongabbie mob and the biomedical people, the Eel people, Parramatta. I'm one of the Aboriginal elders of Western Sydney and also one of the Aboriginal elders of the advisory committee at the Western Sydney University. And it's honoured to be an elder, and when people like the community accepted me into the community as an elder, and I spoke to my senior elder and he said, you know, community never made us elders. We were elders before we became part of the community. So it's all the things that I was taught when I was a young person. I grew up in Eastern Sort of Botany Bay, a place called Lark Rose. I grew up in Aboriginal Reserve, where my elders taught me well. Bill was taught me how to show respect, acknowledge, live with greedy, and always share. Today I live that life. And my people are the Gurrawal, the well people of Sydney. And the thing was, my great-grandmother, living in Sydney, married a Scotsman many years ago, back in the early 1800s. And I'd just like to say that all the people in Sydney, the Aboriginal people, like the Gadigal people, and the Gadigal was on the North Head also, and around where the zoo is and going into North Sydney, which was a Camaragal mob, and going over the Hunters Hill and around Lane Cove, that was the Wallamatical people. All the tribes that lived in those areas were pushed off their land because they wanted to build a city. So they moved us all on. But the thing was, when they built the city, it was my dad and all my uncles that taught me everything I know about my culture. They marched across the Sydney Harbour Bridge back in 1932 when they opened it. And my dad used the markings of the whalebones, like the ribs and backbone. And there were other Aboriginal tribes that joined in that marched across the Harbour Bridge. And my other mob, Gundungurra people from the Blue Mountain, where my grandmother comes from. She was where the Bidjawong mob, the water dragons and people of the Blue Mountains. And on the south coast, my mum's side, she was born in Batemans Bay Hospital, which was the Ballawang tribe, which belonged to the Ewan Nation, the Black Duck on the south coast. So thank you for having me this evening. And I'd just like to say that when people come to this sacred country, they forget that our people are the First Nation of this sacred land. And they think all Aboriginal people throughout the country speak the same language. You know, we have well over 500 dialects in this country. New South Wales, we have well over 136. So it's not been a multicultural country before settlers came in 1788 and was developed. By saying this, we are all Australians. And we as Aboriginal elders, we don't exclude people from the circle. We want people to come to the circle, share their values and stories. I just like to acknowledge other elders who may be with us this evening. But a lot of the non-Aboriginal people, that's why the circle's there, so we can point out who's who at the zoo. Because there's a lot of people out there who've got Aboriginal blood and they don't know that. And the only way they would find out is by coming into the circle and sharing their values and stories. So before I give the welcome, I'd like to say one more thing, is that when we take our next step, just remember the ones that walk this sacred land before. And you know, I'm a proud person because a couple of months ago, I picked up my 4th award in 2 years. And the last one I got was the Order of Australia. I'm so proud of that because I'm not someone special. I'm part of the woodwork, and that's far as I go. Anyways, I'm going to give the welcome, but just before I do, as I said, when we take our next step, just remember the ones that walked the sacred land before. Tiari mara, taraka pelo. Kawi mari apel negara ring bobana. Why none of the waterman? No, I do see guy. Tell him come to the other one. Negara ring the tiari, negara ring the gami guy. Good me the gonna go, that gonna go. Tala nothing look at Banana Gandhi. So low in his brain going to go. Jammy Terry, the gallery go to Jomana. You got on what I needed that like a pebble. Did you go? This is Donnelley lands, the land of our ancestors. This spiritual walk among us. Spiritual have been here since the dream time. Our lands and a culture. We passed from generation to generation to continue an unbroken culture that has extended for thousands of years. In the language of our people, we welcome you to Dark Lands. Thank you and have a great evening. I'm going to that because I've got cataracts at the moment. Once I get them done, I'll be able to go back and do my artwork and do my wood carving and donate all that back to the Relay for Life Cancer Council and kids and adults with cerebral palsy. But out here, I've been playing drums for Uncle for well over, nearly 40 years. Uncle Cole Hardy. I've been his drummer ever since I've been hospitalised. Everything started slowing down because I'm in a roof farm. I'm at Willowra Lodge on Montgomery Road in Blacktown. So I like it there and I can still go out and do what I have to do. So thank you for having me this evening. Thank you.
So much, Uncle Greg, for that welcome, and it really encapsulated everything that Reconciliation for Western Sydney stands for. While we've been, the group has been in existence for over 25 years, we've been, our goal is learning from our Aboriginal people and that exchange and our enabling that exchange. So we've been operating for that over 25 years, bringing it all together, doing our best, and we encourage you all to be a part of it, to be a part of our group. We meet monthly, on the third Wednesday of each month. It's been a process that I joined 6 years ago, and it's been a learning process for me. It's been a wonderful learning up process, and I've learned so much, and I encourage everyone to be a part of it, like we're all being a part of it tonight. So thank you so much, and thank you so much, Uncle Greg, for sharing that with us tonight. I'd also like now to begin, we've got a busy program tonight, and to introduce our first guest, I want to ask Maggie. Cheryl, sorry, I'm sorry, Cheryl. Thank you, brother. Cheryl is going to introduce our first guest. Thank you.
Kathy is currently a Reconciliation Action Lead with Wesley Mission Sydney, a proud Yarrallaroi woman from a Donnelley nation. Kathy has been a strong, committed advocate for Aboriginal rights and truth-telling for quite a few decades, including while she was working at Anglican. Kathy grew up in a mission and has learned more about her family story over the years. Kathy is known and trusted as a significant truth-teller and bridge builder based on her own painful experiences, her Christian faith and her resilience. I personally first met Kathy a few years ago when she kindly met with me for a coffee at Bella Vista to provide me with some guidance while I was trying to develop a reconciliation action plan. I remember walking away from this inspiring meeting with heartfelt gratitude for Kathy for taking the time to share with me her personal experiences. Like many, I believe listening to and acknowledging the injustice of the past is essential towards working towards reconciliation in our communities. And I felt compelled to continue my involvement in the Reconciliation for Western Sydney group. Tonight, Kathy is going to grace us with her wisdom and passion as she shares her own personal and recent documentary called Truth that she first presented at the Indigenous Church at Mount Druitt during Reconciliation Week. I'm humbled to be introducing Auntie Kathy Donnelley.
Thanks so much for having me here. Tom and Patricia, you introduced me to this group many years ago, and I am forever grateful, and you will always be a part of my life. You are my dear friends, and I love you dearly. I have presented here previously, and through Tom's connection, I did an Aboriginal cultural awareness training at North Parramatta at one of the Anglican churches at that time, and that was the day that I'd lost my twin brother. But it was a commitment that I'd already had, so I did the training before I went home to lay my twin brother to rest. It's important for all Australians to gather together to hear from Aboriginal people about the history, the things that we still go through. It's still really, really hard and painful for Aboriginal people to move on since the 14th of October last year, which is nearly coming up now to 12 months. So my birthday's on the 16th, so it wasn't a very good birthday present for me last year, so I laid in bed for 2 days. And the worst thing for me, I suppose, that out of all of that, to think that the rest of Australia didn't think that Aboriginal people were worthy to be acknowledged and recognised in this country. And I just hope that the people who did vote no can sit back and reflect on the damage that they've done to us, that they're still continuing to do to us. And, so tonight you're going to see my story. I do, as Cheryl introduced me. I'm the Reconciliation Action Lead with Wesley Mission. Prior to that, I was with Anglicare for 15 years. And through my work that I do with the Reconciliation Action Plan at Wesley Mission, I co-chair with one of the senior leaders, and through the commitment of our reconciliation journey, I'm the facilitator of the Aboriginal Cultural Awareness training that we have that's mandatory right across the organisation. And in that training, I talk about my personal story in that. And Wesley could see that each time that I told my story, that the pain that I was going through. So Wesley Mission, who I am so ever grateful, decided to take me back home and film my story on country in Brewarrina. And I'm going to, you're going to see that tonight. Last week, it was premiered over in Berlin. And the last couple of days in Copenhagen, and it's also been shown over in Canada. So you are one of the many outside of Wesley Mission that will actually see this tonight. It has been put up to a few film festivals, so we're waiting to see where this journey is going to take us. So you're lucky. Originally, it was only supposed to be a 10-minute video, which turned into a 22-minute. But watch this space, because there is so much content and so much recording in the studio and back home in Bree that they're actually working with NITV, ABC, SBS, Stan, Netflix to hopefully make a 6-part mini-series and a podcast as well, so this can take us, hopefully this is the beginning of many. So I do hope that you enjoy it, and we'll have a little bit of a time afterwards to reflect.
Thank you. Pujara Gamarua, from the Gadigal people. Maria asked me to come and sit at the front. I'm not used to sitting at the front. I was in Oxford Uni last year with a repatriation gig where we were bringing the remains back. And you go into the place where the ceremony was going to happen, and I sat in the third row back, and they come up and said, "No, you used to do the front." And you know, the reality of it is, it's a trauma response from always being removed from the whole environment, let alone put up the front. It's not something that I'm used to. When Maria pulled me out here, it's not I'm used to it. I did a gig here with Maria about 2 years ago. It was somewhere here in Wentworthville, and I think it was one of the best nights of my teaching career. And it was unforgettable. The people who were there were some of the best people I'd ever met. Some of them were a bit sus at the start because they didn't know me and I didn't know them. You just cool out and wait for things to happen. And it turned out to be one of the best nights of my 38 years of teaching. So, out of that came the Wentworthville Reconciliation Group, and I have a great respect for them and a place in my heart for Wentworthville Reconciliation Group from that night 2 years ago, I think it was. So it's a great thing to be back here again tonight. Coming out here from Glebe. Got a ride with Jo and her husband Frank over here. And we were cramped on the way out here, and I go, I can't breathe, I can't do this, I can't do that. And then since I walked in here, everything changed. The cheer of the place is one of welcome and great inclusion. And wonderful people who are here. So just while she's trying to fix this up, I thought, well, let's fill the space with a bit of a talk. And I was talking to Jo on the way out here about.
We are just wondering
if maybe we should get another projector, like from our home.
No,
Which
it's not,
doesn't take
it's
any-
not the projector, it's the
It's the
lap, yeah,
computer.
yeah. It's rebooting now.
It's rebooting.
Okay, so yeah, and I come from Irambi Mission, outside of a very redneck town called Cowra, central New South, and I was relating the story about a little African American girl, 6-year-old Ruby Bridges in Louisiana in 1960, and she had to have 4 FBI agents escorting her to school. At the same time, in 1960, myself and several other Koori children were going through the same thing, walking into town in Cowra to get to school. Those white people wanted to damage us, you know. They would do a lot of damage. And I remember thinking as a 4-year-old, what did we do to these people? So, you know, out of the minds of children, you get this great power of what's going wrong. You know? You just do not know. And today, it's a great trauma for me. But I also work in early childhood now. And my awesome friend here, Navia, who I was just over there sitting with, was invited me out here to her early childhood here at Parramatta. And I'm lucky enough to, first of all, to know her and to work with children and teach them how awesome our culture is. And just as important, that we've always taught the children. Eh? We taught them about astronomy, we taught them dance, we do storytelling with them, and it's a sharing of culture and it's enriching everybody. And that's one of the many awesome things about the culture of this country. We enrich, we nourish, we don't take. Eh? Colonisers take. And one of the many things that I've always felt in this lifetime is I'm so glad we're not colonisers. It is such an awesome blessing to not be a coloniser. And the referendum in October this time last year, the 14th was very close to the 9th today. Our 60% refused us a voice, you know, and our very knowledge bases of the thing that are going to save this country. Indeed, David Suzuki and David Attenborough have put it out that 2 of the world's top environmentalists have said the Indigenous peoples have the knowledge to save the planet because colonials are destroying it for resources and they don't have this connectivity with nature. They see it as a commodity to be exploited. Indeed, the people are to be exploited as well. And this goes right back into the history of this country. And one of the many things I always have said is, you know, we never gave our women, we never gave our children, we never gave our wages, we never gave our land. You know, a lot of people, when you say that, they probably go, oh, I think it's far out, we can't hear this kind of talk. It's the truth. It simply is. And there's so much thing about truth-telling. And that, I believe, is one of the main themes of this whole process, is truth-telling. And Dada said it not too far back, you know, under my government, we will have no truth-telling. How could people talk like that? You know, what kind of children they want to have? They want to live a life for the rest of their life. To have that kind of leadership. It's not a leadership, it's colonialism. You know, that it wants the lie. It wants the comfort zone over everything and everybody. This is the comfort zone is more important than life itself. And it has to do with the ruling classes of England. And it says to all the middle classes and the lower classes to be like us, you know. And that's the example that they follow, like a blind person. And people who are doing that misleading other media, the devil's left arm. They've done more damage in this country than can be quantified. They're doing the same thing today. in America, with this election is going down over there as well. They're misleading everybody. And I would say to you, be careful who you have in your home. Be careful who you expose your family to. And mainstream media has got to be the worst of the worst. SBS, and Paul Keating said, I watch SBS. And, because they haven't got an agenda. They haven't got an agenda of misleading the country and dominating the narrative of the country and what they put out there. So it's very important that we become aware of who we have in our home, and who we expose our children to. And this is all very real. This goes on today. It's like the battle between good and evil rages in people's homes about who's going to watch Channel 7, who's going to watch Channel 9, or whatever sort of gobbledygook is these talking heads. Puke out to everybody, and fill people's heads with absolute what comes out of the toilet bowl. So this is about awareness that we all should have, and if we don't have that awareness, we're in trouble. Where do we get this awareness from? We don't get it from TV. You can better believe it. We don't get it from TV. We get it from nature, right? And as Uncle Greg said it a bit earlier, we're part of nature, and nature is a part of us. And if you want to put it this way, this is our church. This is where we go to worship the great spirits who live and that nourish all of us. It keeps us alive. And Australia is one of the biggest land clearers and deforestation countries on this planet. More times than not, so much of what they're doing is clearing land for pastoralists, for bloody meat, for cows. And they did it in Ireland, they did it in Scotland, push people off their land and replace it with livestock. And it's what's going on right here today. It's what's going on in the Amazon today, where they're clearing football fields in a day to replace it with cattle farms. Bloody carnivores. There you go. I'm telling you, what's in the Lion King? Pumbaa says carnivores. He nearly vomited. It's a great awareness. And just like in the animal kingdom, the carnivores are the most aggressive. It is the same in the human world as well. The carnivores are the most aggressive. And in this context, it's the pastoralists. It's the pastoralists who dominate so much. And what did they say in the 70s and the 80s? Eat more beef, you bastards. Imagine if Corey's come along and said, get off our land, you bastards. We'd have the coppers on us, no worries. So this is a powerful thing where the pastoralists can swear at the whole wider community and get away with it. But if you're a Corey and you come along and you start to talk like that, where's them coppers, So incredible disproportion of humanity and justice going down here, where we're some of the most incarcerated people on this planet. This is very real, and
Yes!
I need to.
We need to stand up.
I know, and I need to close off here and hand the mic back over. So we've got time.
My name is Donnelley, and I'm a proud Yarramaroi woman. from Brewarrina, West New South Wales. When I was growing up, Mum would never ever really speak much about the history and the culture because of past trauma. But Auntie Marge, Mum's younger sister, she had a lot of photographs and shared a lot of stories.
Is it loud enough?
It's a little bit bumpy.
Yeah.
So we're heading out to Brewarrina Mission. A mission is a place that was set up at the beginning of colonisation when they were taking Aboriginal people off the land. Once Aboriginal people were put on the mission, they had to seek permission for anything and everything that they needed to do, so they weren't free anymore. The family was taken off the land and placed in a mission, so they were in the mission at Angledoodle for quite a few years, and then they brought them on backs of trucks and took them down to Brewarrina. And Brewarrina mission here was one of the largest of 3 missions that was built in New South Wales. The mission manager was the school teacher, teaching the children all about England. In the early days, everyone had to speak good English. No Aboriginal language was allowed, and that was the reason why we lost our culture. All of the storeroom, the mission rations were issued here. 2 pound of sugar, 8 pound of flour, and a quarter pound of tea a week. Government blankets and clothing for men, women and children were issued twice a year. The government supplied blankets, which was most of the time infested with smallpox, which also killed a lot of Aboriginal people when they laid down to sleep at night. Because there was no running water here, what the troops and the mission managers would do was take the Aboriginal families down the river for their daily bathing, and they would watch on horseback from the banks of the river while the families were swimming, because back in those days you kept an eye on Aboriginal people all the time, so if any swam to the other side of the river, they could shoot to kill. That's pretty special though, isn't it? Look at it. It's beautiful. It's unbelievable to actually come back and see this, because I've never seen this before, and I always sort of tried to work it out in my head, you know, of where everything was. You know, where was the school? Where was the dormitories? Where was the treatment room? You know, the treatment room was sort of like a hospital where they used the bluestone in their eyes. So bluestone, for anyone that don't know, is acid that they actually put in the Aboriginal people's eyes. And here we go to the treatment room. Every morning when the bell rang at about 7:30 a.m, the children had to go and have the eye drops in their eyes, and once a week their eyes would be painted with bluestone. They're blind now. story has to be told because this is real. You hear all the time, it happened 200 years ago, get over it and move on, you know, but how could you move on? Because all those things that happened years ago, it still affects Aboriginal people today. After the late 50s, I would say, my mum and her parents and siblings, they were then put on a reserve. A reserve is not controlled by anyone. A reserve is a parcel of land where the government put aside for Aboriginal families, because once you're on the mission, you're now socialised as white Australians, so because of work ethics and speaking English. Me and my brother, when we were born, and my mother, she went into labour, my dad put her on the boat, rowed the boat, and she had to walk 3 miles to the hospital. And when she walked into the hospital with my father, she asked the nurse in duty, could she have a drink of water? And the nurse went off to give my mother a glass of water, and when she came back, she threw it in my mother's face. And I think today that's why I'm so emotional, because I could never understand why she wouldn't talk about her story. Hi Mum, it's Katie. You always call me Katie. Love you, miss you. I just went to visit Dad. He sends his love. So I lived in a bower shed for the first 13 years of my life. Being on a reserve, it meant that we had opportunities, but they still placed Aboriginal people on the opposite side of the river from the community, because they didn't want Aboriginal people to be too close to the white community. We had nothing at all, but they were the best days, you know what I mean? And a lot of sad stories too, but that's what makes you the person who you are today, you know, so yeah, so it's exciting to be back here, but it's just bringing back a lot of memories, you know.
Well, that's really, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so nice to come back and reminisce.
Yes. Yeah.
To reconnect.
Right there. Of course.
And was the old bower shed just here?
Yeah.
Just around about here?
Yeah.
So the
The
gathering.
original one, yeah. Grandfather and Dad and all the other men in the area, all the families that were taken off the mission and brought here, they just had to scour the land to look for whatever it was that they could sort of build. So this was the first bower shed that was built, so we slept under this. And we had a campfire outside where we'd cook, you know, our toast of a morning, because we had like a chicken wire over the coals so that we could throw our toast on and, you know, cup of tea.
That's one thing we really miss of having Mum here with us, because she had that stability within the whole family, and every year, regardless, every family member would come home and bring be together at her house, and we'd all eat there, all cook, and whatever was cooked was shared, and we'd sit there, our grandkids down there, and our children would sit with us, and we'd just share the memories and the stories, and they were so intrigued. Every Christmas they'd say, "Come on, it's time for stories now."
Yeah.
So it was a beautiful thing to share.
But when I reflect back on all of this now, it does make me angry. It does upset me. Because I've had a very privileged life, and I can only imagine what my family have gone through. As much as I wanted to know what her life and that was about, sometimes now that I know everything that she's gone through, I have these mixed emotions, like I wanted to know this, but now it's like as if I don't want to know what had happened to her, because it was just too traumatic.
It's a wonder I didn't bring Brenda's. And did you go to school? Because you didn't do any running around.
And you know what how we talk about Aboriginal people and our life expectancy, because this would have been my class. So most of these here who we went to school with, they're all past now. So there's only a couple of us that's left. Just the way
to see when you look back on it all.
Yeah, to think that nearly all of them are gone, you know. The statistics was that Aboriginal people had 17 years less life expectancy, so that's a big difference. It's not just our life expectancy, they also talk about, because Aboriginal people, we have the highest in homelessness, unemployment, incarceration, and lack of education. I poured my heart and soul into my education, and eventually it paid off for me. I was the first primary school student in Australia to win a scholarship, which allowed me to go on to further my education at McKellar Girls High School in Manly Bay. After some time, I got homesick and had to go back to the muddy water and completed my high school back in Brady. It was exciting because I was back with my siblings and my mum and dad. This is where it started for me. It made me feel as though I was connected again, because living away in Sydney from your family, the disconnection is there. Even though I worked really hard for a really good education, family was even more special. You know, you can't get any better than your family. So this is West Brewarrina. That's the second reserve where they housed Aboriginal people. So this is when Department of Housing built 26 Aboriginal homes down here for families who were fresh off the other reserve and the missions. Our house was just here, but because there was 26 homes. A lot different now. They're sort of brick homes, but they were 5-row homes back then when the Department of Housing first built the houses. It was on the same side as the white community, but it was further out of town because they still didn't want Aboriginal people to be too close to the white community. We were given the opportunity to live in one of those homes with electricity, running water, you know, all the modern cons that was so new to Aboriginal families. particular afternoon, I was coming home and I was met by a group of girls with boxer matches. And they tried to set my uniform alight. And when I went home and showed my mum and dad the burn marks in my uniform, they packed us up and took us back to live on a reserve. And a lot of people sort of look and think, well, why would your mum and dad take you from this environment that has everything to another environment, you know, where you're going backwards that has nothing? Mum and Dad knew that we all had aspirations of what we wanted to do, so they made sure that we got the opportunity that we so deserved. You know, they were hard times, but they were really good times. Today is quite special for me because it's been quite some time that the whole family has got together to sing some gospel songs like we did in the old church. Are we doing it in here, Art, or? Yeah? Yeah, she's cruising. You know, you look good. Yeah. Is this you gonna sit at this one, Art? She's putting in the orders now. She wants you to get the right note. Thank you. Thank you. Christianity was introduced to Aboriginal people when they were placed on a mission. It is something that I've grown up with, and we went to church every week, sang gospel songs, and listened to scriptures from the Bible. We still get together to enjoy gospel songs with all the families, and especially my mum's sisters. Thank you so much, Auntie Eva. It was lovely. Did you enjoy that? Yeah? A lot of people don't believe or don't want to listen or believe about the struggles that Aboriginal people have had, and I'm living proof of that. But I'm very, very proud to show people where I've come from, how I've lived, because that's made me the person who I am today.
Oh, what a moving moment that was to be witness that film. Thank you so much, Kathy, for having that for us tonight. We're going to stop for our break now. Thank you. I'll call upon Marie Maguire, long-standing founding member of Reconciliation for Western Sydney. And she'll make a new introduction. Thank you, Marie.
Okay, it's a great privilege to welcome you once again, Linda and Jo, to our group. You have shared your story before with us, but there are so many more dimensions to it that we cannot share enough of. It's about truth-telling, just like we experienced in the first part of the evening so powerfully. And it's a different life that started in difficulties, and yet with leadership from parents who also had a commitment to education and actually to that there is no race, that is all an imagination of our mind. Racism and race is a fabrication. We created, and more scientists now will affirm that. Anyway, Linda has worked on her own for many, many years, and she had a horrific experience of forced adoption. And could never run away from that pain. It's a burden for life, and yet, through deciding that she can do something about it, she created life. And she studied very hard, she believed that education can make a difference, she became a nurse and a midwife, she studied then in social sciences and in law, became a master's in law, became a university teacher, but the pain was still, and she's a mother of 5 sons and 6 grandchildren, and she took on the system. She did not want to have this way of operating with people and sneaking children away and pretending that you are the authority in other people's lives. Continue. So she took on the system. But I don't want to say much more because it is her book that she wrote with Jo that is called "This is Where You Have to Go." You might wonder about such a strange title, and you will see. There are many dimensions, like I said, to this, and it's all hers and Jo's together to bring it to you. Thank you so much for daring to come again with open arms now and giving us the chance to learn deeper, to face the truth and accept whatever is, was, and work on what will be. So we are building together the future for all. Thank you so much.
Did everyone hear that?
Yes.
I'm very honoured to be here tonight, and I'll be introducing you to Linda very soon. A few years ago, I stood here and read out part of a manuscript that we were working on at the time in the hope that one day we'd find a publisher for this amazing story about an amazing woman, Linda Holden, here. That one hope was realised in May this year when we were given a contract a few years ago with the publication of this book, which is called "This Is Where You Have to Go," and it's from Pantera Press. So Linda is the first Aboriginal woman to come out and tell her story about forced adoption and about suing the authorities that took her baby away. This chapter in Australian history, that of forced adoptions, it has been overlooked for a very long time. When the national apology for forced adoptions was given in 2015, unfortunately it didn't get the attention it deserved. And that was because the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd saga took precedence on the day, and the media was more interested in that and gave very little attention to the apology. So Linda and I hope that this book will go some way in addressing and educating people about this very bleak chapter in our history. The book isn't all bleak, however. Linda's baby was taken in 1971, and she didn't see him again for almost 30 years. And to find out what happened, you'll have to read this book. I'm going to read a short excerpt from the book. The year is 1971. The setting is at the Catholic Waitara Mothers and Babies Home in North Sydney. Linda is returning to the home after the holiday period to take her son back with her after a 30-day period. On Thursday the 21st of January 1971, I made my way back to the Catholic Waitara Mothers and Babies Home, feeling very excited at the prospect of holding my little boy in my arms. High on happiness, I made my way up the steps of the home and through the doors, where I was greeted by one of the nuns. "I've come to get Eugene Daniel back," I said. "I'm afraid that's not possible," she informed me. "Eugene Daniel has been sent overseas. You're too late." "What? What do you mean?" "He's gone overseas to a good home." I stood for a few seconds, speechless. I felt like I was going to faint. "Overseas? What? What do you mean? He's not even in his country anymore? Is that what you're telling me?" I felt sick with shock, sick with anxiety. But in the back of my mind, there was a sliver of thought. This is a mistake. Someone has made an error. It'll be sorted out. It's all right. My chest was thumping, and I felt a bit faint. "You're too late, too late." I wasn't too late. It was impossible. Yes, there has been a mistake. But I started to shake. "He's my son, and I want him back. It's not 30 days yet, and there are 9 more days left." "Sorry, Linda, it's not possible, and it's for the best." "Where is he? Tell me where he is." "You'll have to go down to the Registry of Births, Deaths and Marriages to follow that one up," the nun said. She turned and walked away. I stood there, screaming, the tears running down my face, my chest heaving. The nun shut the door in my face. "Come back. I want to talk to you. You can't do this. It's not 30 days yet." But the door remained shut. "There are 9 more days," I screamed. Come back and talk to me." I felt like I was going to vomit, and that was that. Her tone of voice said it all. Another deluded young unmarried mother returning to get her baby, actually believing she could raise a child and provide a good home, and unemployed, and Aboriginal. Where did these girls get their ideas from? Thank God we have nice white married parents to bring their babies up properly. I was in shock, and on my own, and there were no kind words, no advice, and no concern as to how I was feeling. I felt like my legs would give way. "Open this door, I need to talk to you." "If you don't stop, we'll call the police," a voice said on the other side of the door. I bashed and screamed and sobbed. My knuckles and my palms were raw from the force of hitting the door. Nobody came to help. Eventually, I walked away, tears streaming down my face. I was well within the 30-day period of revocation, but nobody recorded that I had come back that day to claim my son. There was no paperwork to fill in to say I had come back, stating my intentions clearly, that I wanted my son returned to me, his rightful mother. Not one person wrote anything down. It was a nun's word against mine, should it ever be questioned that I really did return. So I left, and it was as though that visit never happened. There is no evidence that I was there at all. At the Registry of Births, Deaths and Marriages, they confirmed that my son had been sent overseas. "Who said my son could go overseas?" I cried out. "You did," replied the woman behind the counter, "and here's your signature." "I didn't sign that," I shouted. "When did I sign that?" "Well, you must have signed it, because here it is." I felt like grabbing her by the throat. But I was just another customer who didn't like what they discovered at the Registry of Births, Deaths and Marriages. She would have seen that sort of thing every day. It wasn't her fault, but nevertheless. I'd had 2 shocks that morning, and neither she nor the nuns offered me any comfort at the most devastating moment of my life. I was entirely on my own, and I was completely gutted. "Where has my son gone?" I spluttered, tears streaming down my face. "Papua New Guinea," the woman replied. And I'd like to introduce you to Linda Holden.
I have a thorny knee surgery, so it's, fine. As a lecturer, you get used to throwing your voice so that they can hear it down, 300 feet away. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the Aboriginal people and the Aboriginal land movement. I'd like to acknowledge the elders here, past and present. And I give thanks for my ancestry. And I think my life has been a journey of reconciliation. I'm a woman born of 3 Aboriginal women. I don't go to lady of widows. Of Warramine woman of both, and Biripi woman of Maria. So I've had all white ancestry mixing with Aboriginal ancestry. So I think the reconciliation process for me started way back in the 1800s. And it continues because I'm quite happy to talk to people about what happened in the colonisation. But it's also, I think, telling them about this undercurrent of what happened that nobody wanted to talk about. And in fact, I didn't talk about it for at least 25 years. It was for me, because being brought up in the Catholic Church and then baptised again in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I was very much in line with the religious part of our life. And I felt that what happened was a dirty little secret I had to keep, even from my parents, my siblings, that I couldn't tell anybody. So it went on like that for this 25 years, 30 years. But in the meantime, I was searching for my son. And I also think about my ancestors. They took care of me because it was so traumatic for me of what happened that as a 19-year-old, I got in a car with a stranger and drove around Australia. I wasn't used to alcohol, never seen it in my home. And I learned how to drink wine and to drive. And I think, as my psychologist told me, it was that I didn't have the courage to kill myself, but I was hoping that between driving at night time in the middle of Australia, very high on alcohol, that something would happen in Wentworthville. But nothing happened. I survived, and for 5 years I was missing from my family because I could not talk to anybody about it. It was suggested I get married in Perth. I thought that was a good idea. I've never done that. And so I did that, and that lasted 12 months. I arrived back in Sydney and thought, no, I don't like this idea of marriage. And so then I went home and I was met with the police actually, who told me that there had been a national search for me. My parents were trying to find me. And I had no idea that I had to phone and tell my parents where I was. All I wanted to do was just get away from that hurt. I also took advantage of a country doctor at the time who wanted to learn how to do stomach tightening for women in the country areas. So I did a deal. You tie my tubes and I'll let you do it. So I don't ever want to be exposed to that pain again of having a child and then having that child taken. without my consent. And they, even though they gave me a piece of paper and said, you sign this, they had their hand over the last part. So I only saw a general consent and thought I was signing only for them to keep you so I could go home and get everything ready. But it wasn't. It was all sort of undercover. And then once I started searching for him, I thought I need to make sure that I know what I'm looking at and what I'm doing. So I went into Doctors League beforehand, and I became a policy officer, a project officer, a caseworker for child protection, and then I went into out-of-home care. So I know the whole routine, which for them, they don't like it, but I do know it. I'm still around. And then when it was Carmel Nolan who was there, and I said, no, I'm leaving, I don't want to do this anymore. And she said, well, why don't you go and do law? I thought, well, why not? You know, one of my sons was going to do law at a university. And he said, oh, he said, you wouldn't be able to get in, you're too old, I was all 40. And I said, okay. So I did apply, and I applied as an undergraduate, even though I was a postgraduate in midwifery. And I got in, and he had to spend 6 years with me in the classroom. And there was some embarrassing things, because I'm not frightened now to take on anything. And so my second son, who wanted to do law, got in as well, but then he decided there's no way I'm spending 5 years with Linda at a university. You don't know what's going to happen, how she's going to say something, because I don't see the world as it's written. I see the world differently. I always see the world through black eyes. And I look at the past, and I've learned from the past. I would also like to, when I decided that, yes, when I went and got my records, they don't give you all the records, they give you what they want to give you. And there was one page there where it had very nice English writing on the right-hand side corner down the bottom, my signature. And I said to the two people in the room, that's not my signature. So when they came out and gave me the printed copy of the record, that page was missing. And for me, that was the third lie they told me about what had happened to my son. So I then phoned a lawyer I heard about in Canberra, who was doing their thing. And he put me in contact with two lovely gentlemen, one who's here today, Frank, and Tony. Tony is not well at the moment. And both of them didn't say to me, well, you have to prove that you're, I'll use the Aboriginal word, Narragar, to say that you're stupid, you know, that this has impacted on you so much that you cannot operate as you do. Tony and Frank sent me off to a psychiatrist who spent, I think it was 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and then wrote a report. And when they told me about the report, I said, how can somebody tell me that I haven't suffered a psychological injury? So that made me more determined. They told me what could happen to me. I could lose everything and have to go bankrupt and pay all this money. But I had faith in them. I had faith in the fact that they didn't lie to me. They told me exactly as it was. And so we got a 2015, we got an outcome in the Supreme Court of New South Wales. And so far it's the only one where anybody's taken the Catholic Church on and taken them to court and won. And I have to say, then Frank had to remove himself from the party because his lovely wife wanted to write the story. It took Jo 5 years to get the story out of me, sitting and talking a little bit, and then walking off and doing nothing and coming back. But we got the story. And when Aunt over here was talking about education, I took up every bit of education that was offered. I did 3 degrees full time and raised 4 boys. And I'm still doing, and I've just done another degree. And the more I learn about this, the English legal system, the more I find it gives me ammunition. Mr. Albanese did get a copy of the book. Mr. Lee got a copy of the book. And Minister Washington wrote to me and said that it was heartbreaking. And, you know, they're very sorry. And I said, well, you need to stop removing Aboriginal children. You need to stop it. Because the damage that it did to my son is, well, he's 52 now. And we're still trying to have a civil conversation, if you like, because his view of what happened to him is horrendous. And trying to explain that I didn't cause that, as like, you know, sort of, I might as well be talking to the moon. But I'm open to all questions, I don't mind. And as I said, I'm still, I was approached yesterday if I would work with a project, on a manager project, and on looking at empowering Aboriginal communities, Aboriginal services to help with the children. I am considering it, coming out of partial retirement. I think, you know, they're sort of saying, well, you know, you can still have it where I'm on my ancestors' lands, and I can do the work up there and then come down once a month or something for them. So I'm still considering that. But I have always thought that Aboriginal people can do things. And the first one where I took on an organisation was Red Cross New South Wales, and set up the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander First Aid Detachment in New South Wales. And that was to teach communities how to take care of themselves, especially remote communities where it's about 45, anything up to an hour before an ambulance can get there. So domestic violence, snake bites, accidents, these things happen in Aboriginal communities. And it was there, and we responded. We went out to all the knockouts, it was fantastic. That was closed down in 2010 when Red Cross closed all their detachments. And the other thing about that detachment is we don't wear a white shirt, so they told me that no, you can't change the uniform, and I thought, well, hang on a minute. They changed the cross for a crescent, why can't they change the colour? So we got a yellow shirt from the International Red Cross. And then experiencing racism in health, I took on my no, the manager, God will get her, don't worry about it. I took on my union, and they'd come out 4 times, and they just said to me in the end, is there somewhere else you'd like to work? And I thought, oh, no. Anyhow, I had to leave due to health reasons because of the pressure. And once I had recovered, I went down to the Nurses Association in Camperdown and had a chat with the secretary, and he said, look, don't leave, look, we're sorry what happened. And I said, no, I don't belong to another union. And I was walking out and I saw Bobby Hawke's photo on the wall, And I just turned to him and said, well, where is the Aboriginal nurses photo? And he said, we don't have any. And I said, oh. I said, if I had a hammer, I'd probably hit you over the head with it now. I said, because what have we been talking about? So that then started with my colleagues now, Aboriginal Health and Nursing and Midwifery. Katsanam, which is a Congress of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander nurses. We've since included midwives now, and that's been going for 27 years. So, and run by young members of the Aboriginal community. I'm all for Aboriginal services. Don't worry, I do love white people because I'm married to a white man who really irritated me this week. Tonight actually as well, and how he interprets the world and how I interpret the world. So I think, sort of like I said, I work with a lot of communities, and I'm more than happy to answer all your questions. Is that enough?
Tonight's theme has all been about truth-telling. You've heard stories of the pain and struggles, the personal victories of taking on the system. But what has stayed with you from what you heard tonight? And what would be important for us to explore further? Is there any comment about that? Does anyone like to talk about that? Anyone like to share with us what you've been talking about?
Time for questions since it's already so late. So let's just see. What
Questions.
Questions, because
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, thanks, Mary. Questions? Yes, sir.
I was just saying, I think it's outrageous that story about the drops in the eyes of those poor children.
Oh.
That was 1 hour ago, but I still haven't moved on from that image.
Staggering, isn't it?
It is. Right up there with poison blankets, isn't it?
And the poison blankets. That was smallpox infested. Huh?
Yeah.
Staggering.
The brutality is beyond belief.
Yes.
But it's something Australia needs to come to terms with and deal with. And then we move on. But first of all, we've got to deal with it. You cannot brush this stuff under the carpet. And it doesn't work that way. We need truth to heal ourselves. And white people need to heal from all this bullshit that they come out as well. Because denial just exacerbates the whole process, makes them more aggro and want to press down the truth. So we need the right people to put this kind of things to Alba and anybody else who's in a position, whether it be, what's his name, Sims, who's the New South Men's. Yeah. So, and I guess the only way to do that is through our local members, whether they be state or federal.
Just turn this microphone.
Yes.
Turn it off.
Turn that one off and use the other one.
Oh, that one.
Thank you.
Ben, did you have something to say? Phil? No one's got the call.
Pass on the mic.
Thank you. This continues on with the question I asked last week, and it's we've done the apology to the stolen generations, but it's happening even at a greater rate now than what it was when the apology was given. So, have you got some suggestions about what we can do as a group and as individuals to try to stop another stolen generation continuing and children being removed? Particularly Aboriginal children.
One of the things that happened currently, and has been happening for a while, is when they have a report made on the family, the PCJ comes out and they talk about the report and talk about what the issue is. So the issue might be the children not going to school, or there's too many people in the house. or the children aren't being taken and get their, their medication. They're not getting their medication and they're not getting their immunisation and these things can trigger a report to the department. So the department comes out, a caseworker, and the thing is that all these caseworkers are trained social workers. And then when they get in the department, they go and do a course to be a caseworker. Now, caseworker is a referral system. Social workers walk with the person, not the other way. So they then suggest that you need to get housing, you need to get away from domestic violence, you need to get a job, you need to get education, you need to stop drinking, you need to stop taking, all these issues which are there for a reason. As I said, what happened to me turned me to alcohol, and I never touched anything in my life. And this has happened with these people because they've been removed. So they got the trauma of their removal and they're trying to work through that and raise their children. So they suggest to them, look, we'll take your children for 3 months under a temporary care arrangement. And you go and get anger management, parenting, drug and alcohol counselling, get a house, get out of the domestic violence so that you can prove that you've got care protective factors for the children. Okay? So they give them a piece of paper to sign that says that the children will be placed with the department for 3 months. And it can only be extended for another 3 months if they can't do it in that time. But what they're not telling the parents, or the woman mostly it is that that signature on that piece of paper means that they're transferring for 3 months all parental responsibility for that child to the state and to the carer they place them with. Okay? So they can't make any decisions about their child in that 3-month period. And they don't know that. They don't know that's what is happening. And then they have another order, which they call a parental responsibility contract. And they tell you it's not a contract, but if you breach it, any of the terms or conditions in the agreement, it triggers a breach notice in the children's court. And so your child can be removed. Now that contract is only for 12 months. You're talking about getting people who have been removed themselves, whose parents have been removed, all fixed up in 12 months. Not going to happen. It's going to take a couple of years. So this is why we have all these children in care at the moment. And the government in New South Wales have done away with what they call the alternative care placements, where they've been placing them in motels, placing them with strangers, all this, and a large percentage of those children are Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders. I don't actually speak for Torres Strait Islanders, but I'll mention them in that one. And so my question to Ms. Washington, who we're having email contact at the moment, is if you take away the alternative care, where are you placing these children then? Because you say we don't have enough foster carers. Now we spend $5 billion on foster carers. These children are financial commodities, which is what I keep saying all the time to the government, because there is no order between the court and the foster carer saying you will take care of these children until they're 18. Nothing. So they can just have the child, get paid for it. When they've paid off the house or paid off a car, they can then phone the department up and say remove the child. So they're financial commodities. They don't like me saying that, but that's what they are. And they're frightened that when I do say it, all these foster carers will disappear. But some of these foster carers are making tax-free $85,000 a year on minding these kids. Once putting that money, that $5 billion, into these families for caring, getting a house and getting going with them to housing, to get them proper housing. Understanding why the children haven't been vaccinated. They don't have the money, they don't have the car, they don't have petrol, they don't have anybody to mind the other kids at all. Okay? And these are the reasons. These are the reasons why. And the department keeps wanting to have a chat to me, but I'm not chatting to them because we have to, I put it out there. I'm currently writing, I just written a paper for Human Rights Special Edition on the colonial logic of child removal in Aboriginal communities. That's been published. When they talking about, you know, sort of Art was talking about having all these things they weren't allowed to do. I've never been on a mission, I've been on riverbanks. So my parents moved every couple of weeks from different riverbanks to keep us away from welfare. But when the Human Rights were publishing a book recently, last year it was, on modern day slavery, like I said, I don't think the way normal people think. So they phoned me and said, would you be at the launch of this book? And I said, yes, so long as you say in the introduction that Aboriginal people were the first slaves of this country. We had no rights. We had to get permission to move, permission to marry, permission to get, and as you said with Aunt's story, exemptions, you know. So we were the first slaves. But the white side inside me and the black side is still coexisting very happily together. And I'm quite proud of both of them. Two were prisoners of Mother England, and one was a Jewish man. So I got a bit of everything. So that's why we have what's happening today with Aboriginal children in care. Because it's easy to take them into temporary care, then try and get them and take the woman up to the housing, take her up to Centrelink, tell Centrelink you have to get this right. And if you look at the renting situation in Sydney, even in New South Wales, even in my country town, the rent's gone right up through the roof. Something that would have been, you know, $150 now is anything about $450. And so how are they going to manage on the single mother's pension? You know, and we've got these social workers who are now caseworkers who have no idea about it. They put their 6-inch heels on their pencil skirt and they come in and have no idea. And with a, you know, when I did criminal law with juveniles, I lasted a week. I get them bail on the Monday and then they'd be back in for Wednesday because there was no food at home. So the child would go outside. As soon as they step outside the gate, police would pick them up for each day. So I actually asked to speak to the magistrates and I was told, no, you don't do that sort of thing. And I said, why not? They're the ones making the decision, why not? And one agreed to sit in front of the bench with me and explain to me that they couldn't make parents or the state, who was the parent, responsible because it was too political. Now we've got a piece of legislation called the Parental Responsibility Act where parents can be made responsible for the child. You have to make sure that you're there to feed them, and you're there to talk to them, and you take them to all the things. But it's too political.
You have to leave us with a glimpse of hope, because you lived your life.
There is a glimpse of hope. There's a lot of Aboriginal people who are working in there, and they phone and we talk, and I tell them what they can say, when they're looking for their children, or when the BCJ comes around. So there is a glimmer of hope, and I think by people such as yourselves, it can get out there. And I do hope your story goes worldwide. You know, I think that is what happened, and we don't need to keep going on about it. We need you to understand and to change.
And taking on the system.
Change the culture.
It's every level of the system
Yes.
is doing this.
Yes.
Entanglement of justification of why it has to be this done.
Yeah.
Critics.
Mr. Albanese is going to get another letter with the book because he's now talking about consent, and the book is about the lack of consent. That's what the book is about. And so he's talking about this consent for sexual violence and things like that. I agree with that. But we also need to know that consent is about everything. Whether you get on a train, buy a ticket to go on a bus, it's all about a contract for consent that you're agreeing to. So I'll write to him and explain it to him in very simple language.
And we also hope too that, you know, if people read this book and that has happened to them, that may inspire them to also do something about what happened to them, to take legal recourse. So that's another positive.
Yeah, I think one of the questions nobody's asked me is, how are you able to publicly write a book and publicly talk about it? And the thing is, I never signed a gag order. That was what I wouldn't sign. And my lawyers agreed with, we wouldn't sign it, and supported me in it. And I wasn't interested in any financial. I just wanted to be able to tell the story of all these other women who can't tell their story because they're under a gag order. And so a gag order is...
Who were these other women that...
There's a lot of women it's happened to.
Happened to thousands.
But who asked for the gag order?
The person like the church who did the deed, as we say. And I was, when I was a medico legal for Prince of Wales, I went down to the archives, and there's trays about as long as this and about as wide as this, with cards of women who had adoptions from St Margaret's Public and St Margaret's Private and Crown Street. And all that evidence is still sitting there.
So this is all to do with the Catholic Church then?
Mine is with the Catholic, yes.
It wasn't just the Catholic Church, but this particular case is with the Catholic Church.
Yeah, no, it's all of them. Salvation Army.
They all did it.
Yeah, all of them did it.
They did.
Yeah. Yes.
What would happen if the woman broke the gag order?
They'd be facing a fine in court.
And if they didn't pay it?
They'd still go after them. They'd still
You
go
get
after
a lot
them.
of publicity on television or whatever.
Well, they have it now even in employment. You get a letter saying that if you leave the company, you're not going to say bad things about them or talk about them. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not you sign them, whether you want recognition for what they did, which is what the women want. And then they get probably 20,000, 30,000. So long as you don't say anything, you're fine. A lot of these women
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. Yes, sir.
Sure.
You know, I used to do a lot of consultancy work with docks in Macquarie Street, Parramatta, and ended up going down to docks with two other elders, and I had two foster kids at the time, and our support group was the Koori carers that used to show up. And you know, all the education you give to these white box workers, I don't know what's wrong with them because you don't get the message across. And one of the women, docks workers said, I've been to Uncle Greg's place, but they sleep on the floor in the lounge room, and they've got their own beds in the room. And this one of the carers said, the majority of homes, Aboriginal homes you go into, you'll find all these mattresses on the lounge room floor, and this is where they sleep, and they feel comfortable sleeping in the lounge. And someone told me one day, they said the reason why they don't like to sleep in the bed because they reckon bad spirits can get underneath the bed. So they sleep out in the lounge where the mattress is right on the floor.
Okay.
But the thing is, it's so true. You know, you go to any Aboriginal home and you'll find mattresses all over the floor. That's where they sleep. And because they drag the mattress off the bed and they take it out in the lounge. And the thing is, you know, like our kids have been taken away, but the white person got to be responsible for all this, for setting us up to fail in the first place. Because I really believe, no matter how hard the white person works, the Aboriginal man will always be one step ahead of him.
Thank you. Thank you, Uncle Greg, for that, speaking so truthfully. And that's brings tonight, you know, tonight's all been about truth-telling, and we've really heard the truth. And I need to remind you, but next week, we're doing it 16th, we're doing Justice and Youth. There'll be another great evening, just so you're more than welcome, and please tell everyone to come along.